in my dream home one day, I would love to host you for an afternoon cocktail in the laundry room.
That's the laundry stick.
I wasn't telling you.
Multitasking at its finest. Hey, welcome back. I'm Danielle Blundell.
And I'm Zee Christic. This is Design Defined, the show where we break down what's happening in home design, why it matters, and what it actually means for the way that we live.
And don't forget that I write a Substack under the same name. You want to go deeper into the conversation over there.
Please join us on Substack. Anyway, Danielle, what are we getting into today?
Today is going to be a good day because we're talking about Apartment Therapy's new next list. And this is one of our biggest editorial moments throughout the year.
I'm so excited, but anyone who might be listening who doesn't know what New Next is, can you describe it for them?
Yeah, totally. So New Next, it's one of our biggest editorial franchises here at Apartment Therapy. And you know as well as I do, we're out at all the market, right? We're hitting trade shows, we're looking at lookbooks, we're talking to designers and brands, and it's really exciting.
And we've got 6 trends we want to talk about today, from an architectural shift that's literally rounding off the hard edges of the home, to a lighting fixture that you and I definitely saw while we were eating at Pizza Hut growing up.
For sure, yeah.
And also a design aesthetic that's new, that's a little bit equal parts Victorian manner and also a little bit of, I found this at a flea market and it's staying.
Exactly. We're going to define Eclectorian. Don't Google it. We made it up. And yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it. So the first thing on our list today is a little bit of a buzzword for you and me now. I feel like we're creating the new hot buzzword of the summer, maybe also into next year. We're calling it soft, in quotes, soft architecture. But I feel like people might see that on paper and be like, huh? What does that exactly mean?
Totally, because I feel like it's a bit of an oxymoron, right? You think of architecture, you think of clean lines, hard edges, buildings. So it's like soft what? But I think everyone might be familiar if you're on TikTok or you're on Instagram with like the whole soft movement, just kind of a little bit more gentler way of living. And we kind of apply it to anything. So for this, we want you to think about design losing its edge literally. Arched doorways, right? Instead of square ones. Rounded kitchen islands, which is something that I feel like we're seeing more and more of. Tinted ceilings. You and I have been talking about not tinted ceilings, but drapery and kind of canopies and that sort of thing. So a lot of that is popping up.
Evolution of what's next, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And more just like a home that feels like a hug. This is like cozy 2.0 because now it's not just about your blankets and your throws anymore. It's about the literal walls, right?
It includes upholstery. It includes things that aren't exactly built into your home.
So it's just like a rounding off, a gentling, and not too much of it. I think 1 or 2 hits per room is sort of enough. I don't think you want every single detail in your room to be soft, and it's probably difficult to find that anyway. But it's just these like standout moments.
I was going to bring up that in the past have loved like an accent wall.
Yeah.
But you and I have been seeing a lot of drapery in place of color, in place of a wallpaper, just springing for that sort of texture and that visual effect of the drapery on the wall.
Absolutely. And I feel like we've been seeing this in apartment therapy house tours for a long time. People would use drapery to potentially like create division in a studio and use like a tension rod or something to that effect. Or maybe you're putting it over a doorway just to you have that, little bit of visual division. Yeah. So it kind of is carving up the space a little bit. But now people are just doing it for decoration's sake. To your point, exactly. Designers have done it usually behind a feature wall. A lot of times you'll see it behind a sofa. You can also see it behind a bed. We've had a couple apartment therapy house tours where people have done it behind the bed wall. I think Michelle Trin, one of our friends, one of our AT friends, absolutely did it.
Almost like a substitute for a headboard.
Yeah. And, you can use fishing line or some types of books and chain to still hang art there, which is really cool. A lot of people are doing it with like literal curtains, just curtain panels. It doesn't have to be completely unadorned. You can add trim. You could put art over it.
A note that we had you and I was to talk about the way that we're seeing fabric like play into lighting, which might be a little bit smaller scale.
Nate and Jeremiah did that too. They had these gorgeous sort of pleated sconce shades, which I think is like another great example of something. A shade is usually hard, right? Metal a lot of times, not metal, pleated cotton. They're generally architecturally harder but now they're softening up. So yeah, that's a great example. And then sometimes, you can even solve a problem with this. So I'm thinking of another house tour, and Anna in Brooklyn, another one of our AT friends actually used drapery to hide like a weird door. So this can even be a problem solving thing too, which is cool. Obviously you can do it on furniture, but you and I were talking a lot about canopies recently. A little more ambitious,
Yeah.
but doable.
We've seen our friends on house tours, and also some of our writers have been tackling canopies in applications like a nursery, which I think was really beautiful. They were cute. It feels like a high-end detail, a luxe detail that you can mix into the rest of your home as is and kind of mix high-low, high-low.
Absolutely. And like, we'll call it now 2027. I think you're going to see way more tented ceilings. I know that this is a trend that has been taking over weddings. People want to look up and kind of have that moment of surprise and delight. So I could see people doing that too. I think it's going to be a little more difficult to pull off. But again, can be as easy as you hate your shower door. That's, a hard glass panel.
Yeah.
Tension rod and a shower curtain, and you can hide it.
Looks so luxe.
Hide it with some soft architecture.
We're going to talk about the next item on our list, which is, for me, a teensy bit controversial, but not really. It's
not as bad as string light.
No, don't mention those around me anymore. Anyway, the next item on our list, there was a little bit of a moniker. We have to give a shout out to our colleague Adrian for coming up with it. We're calling it Pizza Hut lights. They're really tavern lights.
Sidebar lights.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of thing that I feel like you would see in a lovely 80s pool hall.
Yeah.
Vibe. Yes, the billiards have them. Yeah. We definitely feel like these stained glass accent lights are coming back.
Yeah. And I think it's more of like an outgrowth of like everyone wanting personality again and character, and things kind of going a little bit more maximalist and colorful, and people really embracing that and wanting their spaces to feel like their own. Of course, nostalgia is at play too. We know everybody loves to reminisce. I do think back of like after a soccer game, like going to Pizza Hut and seeing these stained glass kind of just kitschy sort of fun lights over a single booth. So the thing is though, like most trends, it's not going to be an exact carbon copy of what you saw before. Things evolve, right? So I think this sort of has its, we'll say like origins maybe in the Tiffany lamp, which is something very high end.
That is definitely the stretch, I feel.
But I mean, there is some continuity there. Those are stained glass. These are stained glass. I agree. I don't think that they're made by necessarily artisans and not an art object, but I think you can have fun with them. So the example I'm thinking of that really made me think, okay, like this is happening was Dan Pelosi, who is a friend of, I'm sure, The Kitchen, but we want to be your friend too, Dan. So call us. We love your Ruggable collab. And Ashway's just the cutest little mats and runners and harfits for just going to
really luscious, yeah.
But the lighting is so cool too. So I think Dan used a couple of the pendants in his kitchen, and then he has this like great little auxiliary space. I think it might be a mudroom or like a hallway or some kind of situation like that. And it just has that whimsical little light.
It's a lot softer than anything you'd ever see in Pizza Hut, but
totally.
But you get the reference.
Exactly, you get the reference. And I think he had mentioned when he did his house tour and on his Instagram that they just remind him of his grandma's house. And that's exactly like it. And I think they can get a little bit like whimsical. So his are a little more abstract or like solid color. If you're at the flea market, maybe keep your eyes peeled for something that like another friend of AT, Francesca, the lovely decorator stylist. Yeah, we have toured a few of her spaces, but not the space she's currently in, but the space before that. She had a bunch of these. One really fun one. It's like a little carnival light almost. Yeah. It has like the horse and the
equestrians. Yeah, I love how it anchors the dining space in her space.
She's got the House of Pacme wallpaper. She's got the sort of Italian-ish looking mid-century velvet rust chairs. She's got a little bit of like a folk art moment going on over the sidebar. It's just like a very fun pastiche, like mix. So what are we loving about this look in general? You tell me. I know I have to like twist your arm a little bit, but
I know I do enjoy it. I think that's delightfully retro. And yeah, for me, like there's a bunch of references we've talked about so far. We talked about our grandma's house. We talked about Pizza Hut, of course. I think part of the reason why people are enjoying this kind of aesthetic a little bit right now, you're going to think I'm crazy, but
no.
Stranger Things just finished last year. And that was delightfully 80s. And there was a lot of this sort of, antique-ish glass moment happening. And I think like that aesthetic, people are still looking to kind of bring that into their spaces in little pops. And I think that this pendant lamp, whether it's a pendant or an accent lamp, is sort of a beautiful way to do that. I grew up in a house, my mom, I have to give her a shout out, loved Tiffany stained lamps and sort of that kind of stained glass applique. I don't think she would have had this growing up because I think she would have got it a little bit lowbrow, let's just say that. But now people are finding kind of new, exciting ways to style them, and it feels a little bit more relevant.
But I think now people are going to work with it. And you're going to see these at flea markets, and you can probably get a good deal on them. And they can be quite large.
I mean, for now, yeah. Let's see
Exactly.
by December how much you're paying for a Pizza Hut light.
Exactly. Until this comes out. Moving on from chain restaurant, chain restaurant chic, and heading over to one that I want you to talk about, because this is one that I think you had seen at ICFF, which again, for our friends in the audience that maybe don't know, it's a International Contemporary Furniture Fair, and it happens every May. I think it's going to be moving to September in the future, but it happened this May. So this one feels fresh, and it's shine maxing. So we're kind of saying bye-bye, Matt. You had your moment, and now it's all about the shine. So tell
about luster. Yeah. And I love that's the term that we coined because it does feel representative of everything that we're seeing. So whether it be tile or home decor accents like mirrors or side lamps or even dinnerware, table tapware, I definitely, we've seen designers kind of embrace any sort of material, whether that be pearlescent or iridescent, that bounces light around a room, and it instantly adds kind of that pop of glamour to draw your eye when you walk in. We've seen a lot of things that feel pearlescent, they feel iridescent, they feel reflective of light in a way that feels new. Our detail would have read a little bit futuristic in an icky way in the past. However, now the iridescent of it all is really coming through in a beautiful way. And I think for me, I noticed it started happening really in kitchens, via tile. But we're seeing it now kind of through a lot of applications, including lacquer on walls and furniture, on home decor accents, that kind of thing. We're seeing mirrored accents and actual mirrors that feel, not only are they reflective of your reflection, but they're iridescent to the eye. They feel
totally like
a prism.
Mirrored frames on mirrors or frameless mirrors, like different playing with that kind of like shine on shine on shine. Well, and that's what's cool about this too, is that obviously on the surface it seems so aesthetic, but it's actually functional on some level too. If you have a really dim room or you're in a small apartment that feels kind of like dull, or you don't have a lot of windows so you don't get a ton of natural light, this can kind of like putting pops of this around the room can kind of like fake it a little bit. You make it.
I personally love it, maybe more than anything else on our list, which by the way, there's a lot more online, but we'll get into that in a minute. Only because I think like there are so many influences that are playing into this trend, including what we're seeing walk down the fashion relays, whether it be here in New York or overseas.
Talked about Michelle earlier. She did a lacquer kitchen in her New York apartment that I think she custom blended a shiny blue color. So
yeah, that blue is stunning.
Definitely saw that. I think she was inspired by Paris. It all comes back to Paris.
Oh, it always does. Jewel tones in Paris. One thing that we wanted to call out, but we're calling out all of our friends. Jason Saft.
Our favorite.
And I don't know if that's at market anymore, but he used a piece where it looked like a mirror from far, but he actually applied it as a headboard behind the bed. And the finish of the actual glass was completely iridescent. So it looked like a rainbow almost.
Oh, gorge.
We are also going to cover this more in depth on apartmenttherapy.com. So more to come there, and look out for that video with Jason.
Yeah, new series coming with Jason. So
yep.
Yeah, for that. We love you, Jason. So yeah, I think even with all the shine, things are a little bit different than maybe like the 2010s when you would think of like the bright orange lacquer, the like neon green lacquer. That's still there, but I think things are getting like darker, moodier, more sophisticated. I've seen some gorgeous like oxblood tables from the lacquer company that, you know, makes just about everything in lacquer, which is cool, and all their stuff is beautiful. Of course, they have rights too, but I just think it's like a different context this time.
Totally. And I think what you and I have been talking about separately too is what feels new about the way that we're seeing this now is that we're also still blending it with matte finishes, right? I think people can be very quick to over-index on a trend, and then suddenly you walk into a kitchen and everything is shiny and pearlescent. But I have to call out our friend Kim Light, who toured her space, and she had a beautiful gold lacquer on her cabinetry, which felt like a, you know, an accent that almost couldn't be ignored, but she definitely tamed it and sort of married it with other finishes in that space that were matte, that brought kind of a beautiful collected balance to the space that didn't feel overwhelming.
So fun fact about Kim and that project that you brought up actually with her kitchen, she DIY'd that
Wow.
with Keel and Stick
Brave.
from
Amazing.
internet, and it looks
Incredible.
insane. It looks so high end. Thinking about another one of our buddies, Fanny from Paris, I believe.
Yes.
She has just a gorgeous kitchen too. And
A girl after my own heart. Everything in pink.
yeah, pretty and pink, exactly. With like a little pop of green. So she's got like my green. She's a green girl for me too. But I think with her, she's got sort of that Zallige tile that has the shimmer, but then she sort of tempers that with the matte paint of her walls and her cabinetry. And then chrome, which we've talked about kind of making a comeback, but it is here.
Yeah.
She's got pops of chrome all over the kitchen, all over the apartment. And, you know, that's just another thing that can add a little bit of shine and that little touch of glamour when used daily or, exactly, in the right doses. So it's like anything goes right now with the shine. I think it's brass, it's chrome, it's lacquer, it's iridescence, it's pearlescence, it's all of those things. Another one that you kind of brought to my attention and I totally agree with.
I appreciate the credit, but I feel like this is both of ours.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, it's zeitgeisty. It's happening. But the way that we're kind of pulling it together feels very apartment therapy. We're calling it modern folklore, not to be mistaken with the album by Taylor Swift.
But we love the Swifties, so if you're out there, please join us.
This one is a little bit like semi-quincentennial. And yes, we Googled that. That's what the 250th anniversary is.
Yes, happy birthday, America.
So yeah, it's like a little bit America, but it's not flags. It's not, you know, so literal.
Braided rugs, which we love, including jute and all kinds of natural woven materials. Federal style mirrors, which we've covered on site at length. We're a big fan of those convex looking eagle adorned mirrors.
Yeah, exactly.
And Gingham is having a huge moment right now. A lot of basketry, which we love. Again, that woven touch. There's some quilts happening, a lot of created details, adding all that stuff. And then again, like you said, kind of the folk art touches that we know and love.
Yeah, and I mean, think of this as like another way to say like, we love antiques. They're happening right now. You can fill your house with them, but always again, balance, because you don't want to live in a museum. We can talk through some like examples of the ways people have done this in kind of like a really modern way. So a house tour that's coming to mind for me is Allie from Austin. She's an incredible designer. Beautiful, beautiful house. She did a guest room with the quilts and she's layering kind of quilted fabrics with interior prints and stuff like that. And kind of what looks to be like a spindly bobbin type bed, which might not be the exact period, but it's again like a
Historical reference.
Historic type of furniture. So love her tour. You've got to check it out. Another example, do you remember Sarah Crawford? Okay, so she was in the city.
But if you look at these photos, you would, if you didn't know where she was, it almost feels like Cape Cod or Nantucket or somewhere very coastal and beautiful, which I love.
Yeah, which is its own kind of brand of the whole quilted, modern sort of full floor kind of look. And she had like ticking stripe looking thing. She had some beautiful brass cloth wallpaper. And I think, you know, when mixed in with the traditional sort of wooden furniture, it does feel like a little bit like folksy, but like in a cool way.
Yeah.
In a more modern kind of edgy way. And to your point, like a little bit coastal too, based on the palette. So how to keep this fresh, right? Because like I mentioned, you don't necessarily want to feel like you're living in a museum. You just want like pops and touches. An example that comes to mind for me is maybe having like a funky, like, I don't know, 18th century portrait and pairing that with like a bold colored wall. So it's just like a mishmash. So maybe you're going modern with your lighting in your bedroom, but you have a beautiful quilt on your bed that feels very like folksy and sort of Americana in that way.
And I think you can even see it like in a minimalist space, for example. If you have a braided rug in your bedroom, that might read a little bit Americana-esque depending on the palette of the room. So I think it's like, again, another thing that you can play with to incorporate into your space as it is now and not necessarily have to redecorate everything all at once.
But I think with the right layering, like a la Alley, you can do these fabrics and you can pull off these accessories like anytime, any place.
Love it.
So
I'm going to be dressed in gingham next time that we meet, head to toe.
okay, let's get into the aesthetic of it all and let's talk about a couple more sort of design styles or just like trends that we're noting as
Across the home, all the way around.
Exactly.
I never think of.
Okay, so this is kind of, again, could be controversial. Well, maybe not controversial, but just a little
Surprising.
unexpected. Yeah, exactly. We're calling the new spot to sort of like find your inspiration, the commercial laundromat. And yes, you heard that right.
Yes, you did. Especially if you're here in New York, or I would say almost every other major metropolitan city at this point has introduced a laundromat that looks quite elevated and is multifunctional. And I think
Totally.
we are seeing in home spaces that people are drawing inspiration from some of the palettes, some of the finishes, some of the intricate details that people are seeing at the laundromat in their own spaces.
I think that the undercurrent here really is taking something mundane and trying to make it feel pretty and sort of dressing it up to like hate doing laundry a little less.
Maybe. I mean, I think the goal is that we make laundry rooms somewhere that you want to be. Like,
Right.
You know, in my dream home one day, I would love to host you for an afternoon cocktail in the laundry room.
As the laundry stand.
I'm telling you.
Multitasking at its finest. But no, you're right. Like it's bold wallpaper, it's custom cabinetry, it's playful color palettes. And they do have their roots in some of these commercial spaces because from the research that we did, there are laundromats with coffee bars in them. In fact, I've been to one in Brooklyn where you can get your coffee and then the machines are just like across from it. And there's like an area to like sit down and work or do whatever it is you have to do. You actually might want to stay at the laundromat instead of like putting your quarters in, leaving.
One of my good friends, you guys, just had a first date at a laundromat. Like, that was a bar, to be fair. There was drinking involved.
Is it like
Yeah,
a speakeasy or is it like a...
No, I think, to be fair, it's in Brooklyn. It might even be the same one that we're talking about. But I love that she was like last minute, like, hey, grab your laundry. We're going to go to this bar and do laundry. I thought it was cute.
It's very original.
And I think the idea is that functional spaces sometimes are an afterthought because we care about what's happening there and making it very easy. And we care less about the way that it looks. However, whether it be in your own laundry room at home, if you're lucky enough to have one, or your bathroom or your kitchen, I think this movement is about taking a second to be like, is it functional? Yes, but also what are we doing to make it a place that we want to sit in and
Kind of
really enjoy?
And I love that you mentioned maybe it's a corner in your, basement or it's a corner in your, you said kitchen, because a lot of people do have laundry closets. And yeah, wouldn't it be fun if when you open that laundry closet, you saw a sneak peek of like some Beverly Hills Hotel-esque, like palm frond wallpaper? I don't know. Like it just could be so much more fun than it is.
You and I are just on a mission to make chores fun again. However we can. There's a report on site. I invite all of you to check it out, where we did a little bit of reporting on where this trend sort of comes from. And they talked to Ireland McCoffey, which is the co-founder of the Laundromat here in New York City, an amazing brand that Danielle and I both have loved for a long time. And she basically gave us a quote I think that sums it up perfectly. I think that people are expecting a level of care from businesses that we have not seen in the past. Doing everything you can to give your customers the best experience possible is crucial. So I think that kind of plays out too in the aesthetic of it all. Like, not only is the service great, but Again, it's a memorable spot that you want to come back to again. It's a place that makes you feel happy and comfortable and excited to be there, even though you might be doing laundry.
Well, and think about it for the house. You're your own customer in your house, right?
Mhm.
So like bringing that sort of commercial kind of idea sometimes. I mean, I've always said a lot of the innovation in design comes from commercial spaces. So this is like the perfect example of it.
Yeah.
And we've seen this a little bit too. We've had some B&As. We had like a gorgeous one where
Yes, the
just like
Blue.
a coat of blue
Ah,
paint, a
blue.
little bit of artwork, and like a little bit of wallpaper really made a space into like a moment, right?
And the thing about that too for me is that it's not anything like super expensive.
Doesn't
Like I think it can add up super
Yeah.
quickly, and if like that's the direction that you go in, good for you.
Yeah.
However, it can also be as simple as 3 coats of really beautiful pale blue. Here you're seeing now.
All right. I think you have the last one.
Right, which again, we've come up with a moniker for it, and I think that the dictionary will add it later this year and credit you. We're gonna
Word of the year.
at Merriam-Webster. Please call us. Thank you. We're calling it Eclectorian design.
I feel like the term itself is kind of like if eclectic design, which goes from all different periods, including the modern era, had a baby with Victorian design.
For those who might not be well versed, will you break down Victorian style for us? I mean, I think we can all picture it, but give me the highlights.
Yeah, like what are the vibes of Victorian? Okay, the Eastlake period, all of those types of details. That's like the angular geometric woodworking, no mass production, those beautiful gingerbread trims that you probably see sometimes down the Jersey Shore, like anywhere that has like a good Victorian house stock, you'll always see that. And it's like the bright colors and just features that make your house literally look like a little art piece. Darker hues, lots of darker woods. Remember, the Victorians were obsessed with like sanitary spaces, so it's a lot of white in those spaces, like kind of a very big contrast to what the rest of the house would look like, which would be like very ornamented and adorned and flourished and just kind of like a little over the top. But I guess over the top for the time, because I can certainly think of a lot of interiors now that would get Victorian, get Victorian houses run for their money. Exactly. Yeah. So take all that Victorian goodness, right? And then marry it with just like eclecticism, general eclecticism. So maybe it's century lighting or just like modern furniture, or like maybe you're buying your first house and it's an old Victorian and you're just going to put a whole bunch of like more contemporary stuff in it, but you still have that beautiful Victorian fireplace or the trim. Yeah. So it's like a mashup in the best possible way. The Victorian era was definitely known for being a little bit more uptight, and that's not what design is anymore. Like, things are just so much more relaxed and there are really no rules. The only rules are that there aren't any, and you can mix and match and kind of take what you want from one period, put it next to something, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but then somehow suddenly it does. So I can't wait to see some of like my favorite designers put their spin on this. Like thinking about somebody like a Heidi Collier, who is known for working with historic houses. Like put her in a Victorian and see what she does, where she'll probably have some British influence in there. She'll probably have some like beautiful Italian mid-century lighting or something like that,
Patterns.
Pattern mixing, pattern maxing, if we want to say that too. It's just sort of like the historicism of Victorian style mixed with something new. And it's like up to
you to decide.
like what that new is. So tag us in all your
Creation, seriously, a new vibe.
Yeah. And those are just a few highlights from the new Next list for this year. Look, we could have talked for like another 2 hours about this.
Probably like 10 hours.
Yeah, we could keep going. The full new Next list is at Apartment Therapy and it drops on July 29th.
Yes, check it out. Let us know what you think in the comments below about some of the trends.
And this year, we're doing something a little bit different. For the first time ever, we're naming our new Next designers.
These are the people behind the latest in design and the names that we think you'll need to know.
So thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
Design Defined was produced by Karis Danish with help from Vixen John. It was edited and filmed by Vixen John. Set designers, Maya Borrero. That's it for Design Defined. I'm Danielle Blundell. See you next time.